They said, "The garage is all set for you." Then a woman in an SUV asked for my art. The biting the November air of Thanksgiving Day was a stark contrast to the warmth I'd tried to cultivate for Leo and Chloe. But even the chill outside couldn't prepare me for the icy dismissal that awaited us inside my sister Sienna's opulent home. "The garage is all set for you," she'd announced, handing me a stack of flimsy paper plates as if it were the most natural thing in the world. No apology, no hint of discomfort, just a casual directive before she rejoined the glittering tableau of our extended family under her crystal chandelier. I stood there for a beat, the cheap plates feeling like an insult in my hand, my two kids standing quietly behind me. 12-year-old Leo, already so tall and trying hard to be stoic, and 9-year-old Chloe, her usual bright eyes clouded with confusion. They waited for my lead, and the last thing I wanted was for them to witness my crumbling composure. So I forced a smile, a brittle thing that didn't quite reach my eyes, and steered them towards the side door and the uninviting maw of the garage. The familiar scent of gasoline and dust hung heavy in the air, a stark contrast to the expensive perfumes I'd caught a whiff of inside. A single scarred folding table leaned against the concrete wall, flanked by two mismatched metal chairs and a dusty cardboard box that became Chloe's makeshift seat. There were no festive decorations, no hint of the holiday spirit that permeated the house just a few feet away. Only a heavy silence, broken by the distant clinking of what I knew were proper silverware against china. This was our Thanksgiving feast. Leo sat down stiffly, his gaze fixed on the meager portions of food Sienna had begrudgingly provided. Chloe poked at her mashed sweet potatoes, a thoughtful frown creasing her brow. It was in that moment, watching my children navigate this blatant exclusion, that a profound shift occurred within me. The familiar sting of being the less favored sibling had dulled into a quiet resolve. I was done seeking validation from a place that consistently offered only cold indifference. Our lives were a world away from Sienna's carefully curated perfection in Willow Creek Estates. My cozy, if cramped, two-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town was filled with a warmth that no amount of square footage could replicate. As a receptionist at a busy clinic, supplemented by freelance photography gigs, my finances were always a delicate balancing act. Extras were a rarity, but Leo and Chloe never complained, their resilience a constant source of both pride and heartache for me. That morning, getting ready, I'd scrutinized my reflection, wondering if my worn dress was presentable enough. It wasn't about impressing Sienna or my mother, Eleanor, I'd told myself. It was for Leo and Chloe, who deserved to feel some semblance of normalcy on this holiday. But a small, persistent voice whispered that a part of me still longed to be seen, to be acknowledged as more than the struggling single mom. Sienna's house was a monument to her success. A sprawling, sterile space that smelled of expensive cleaning products and unspoken rules. Her marriage to Blake, the perpetually connected and subtly condescending lawyer, had elevated her to a social stratum that felt alien to me. Their life was a whirlwind of private schools, nannies, and luxury SUVs. Our connection had frayed years ago, the chasm widening with each of her seemingly effortless achievements. Arriving at her perfectly landscaped driveway, the sounds of laughter and merriment spilled from the house. Taking a deep breath, I'd turned to my kids. "Ready?" Chloe, clutching the small container of her special apple crisp, had nodded uncertainly. Leo, ever the pragmatist, had simply said, "Let's just get through it." Stepping inside Sienna's grand foyer felt like entering another dimension. Eleanor, perched on a velvet armchair, barely registered our arrival, her attention fixed on Sienna's children's impromptu performance. "Oh, Maya, you're here," she'd said, her tone more of an observation than a greeting. Sienna had breezed in from the kitchen, her designer heels clicking on the marble floor, her eyes flicking over the apple crisp with a dismissive air. Blake had offered a curt nod, his Bluetooth still blinking in his ear. We were left standing, a small, awkward island in a sea of familial cheer. Chloe had offered her apple crisp to Eleanor, who'd accepted it with a perfunctory, "How quaint." The familiar sting of being an outsider had returned, sharp and unwelcome. And then came Sienna's pronouncement about the garage. As we sat there, the sounds of their laughter echoing faintly, I knew something had to change. This endless cycle of seeking acceptance where none was offered had to end. The silence in the garage was heavy, a tangible thing that settled over us like the dust motes dancing in the slivers of weak sunlight filtering through the grimy windows. We ate in a muted stillness, the sounds of laughter and clinking silverware from the main house a constant mocking reminder of our isolation. Just as Chloe pushed her barely touched sweet potatoes around her plate for the 10th time, a sleek, black SUV glided to a stop outside Sienna's house. It wasn't the usual parade of luxury vehicles that frequented their driveway. This one had a quiet, almost imposing elegance. Inside the garage, we exchanged curious glances. Even Leo, usually so adept at masking his emotions, raised an eyebrow. Through the grimy pane of the side door, we could see figures moving inside the house, their silhouettes momentarily obscuring the golden light. A collective pause seemed to ripple through the Thanksgiving gathering. But the SUV didn't stop at the manicured front lawn. It continued its slow crawl, the tires crunching softly on the gravel of the driveway until it halted near the garage entrance. The engine hummed to a stop, and a woman emerged. She was tall and carried herself with an air of quiet confidence. Her tailored coat, a deep charcoal gray, spoke of understated elegance. Even from our vantage point in the dimly lit garage, there was an undeniable aura of success about her. She paused, her gaze sweeping over the house, and then, with a clear, resonant voice that somehow carried even through the closed garage door, she asked, "Excuse me, I'm looking for the owner of this residence." My heart gave a strange little flutter. For a fleeting moment, I assumed she was a guest, perhaps a business associate of Blake's. But then, something in her directness, the way her eyes seemed to scan the property with a discerning gaze, made me hesitate. As I stood up, the flimsy paper plate still clutched in my hand, I saw the silhouettes in the living room window shift and coalesce, a silent audience watching the unexpected arrival. "That would be my sister, Sienna," I replied, my voice a little uncertain. The woman's gaze turned directly towards the garage, her expression thoughtful. "And you are?" "Maya," I answered, a simple statement of fact. A faint smile touched her lips. "Maya Rivers? Yes, I thought so." She took a few steps towards the slightly ajar garage door. Chloe instinctively moved closer to me, her small hand finding mine. Leo stood a little straighter, a flicker of protectiveness in his eyes. "Do I know you?" I asked, a knot of curiosity tightening in my stomach. "My name is Vivian Hayes," she said, her voice calm and steady. "I'm the founder of Art Connect, a community outreach program focused on promoting local artists and fostering artistic education." The name vaguely registered. Years ago, during a particularly rough patch after my separation, when I was juggling odd jobs and trying to keep a roof over our heads, I'd volunteered briefly with a local arts initiative. It had been a small thing, helping with their website and occasionally taking photos at their events, a way to feel like I was contributing something when my own life felt so chaotic. Vivian continued, her gaze unwavering. "About 3 years ago, you contributed a series of photographs to our online gallery, raw, honest images that captured the spirit of our community in a way that truly resonated." Her words took me aback. It had been a fleeting period in my life, a blur of survival and quiet desperation. I'd almost forgotten those photographs, snapshots of local artisans and community gatherings, shared on a small, barely visited online platform. "I've been following your work ever since, Ms. Rivers," Vivian said, her tone sincere. "You have a remarkable eye, a way of seeing the beauty and the stories in the everyday. We're organizing a significant community arts gala next month, and I would be deeply honored if you would be our featured artist." My mind felt like it had stalled. Featured artist? At a gala? The words seemed to belong to another reality, a world away from the cold reality of the garage. Vivian's gaze softened as she took in my stunned expression and then glanced at Leo and Chloe. "We would, of course, handle all the logistics, transportation, setup, even childcare if needed. This is an opportunity to showcase your talent to a wider audience, Maya. Your perspective is valuable and it deserves to be seen." A stunned silence hung in the garage. Leo and Chloe exchanged wide-eyed glances, a flicker of something akin to hope igniting in their expressions. "Featured artist?" The words echoed in the dusty space, a stark contrast to Sienna's earlier pronouncement about scraps. "Me?" I finally managed, the question barely a whisper. Vivian's smile was warm and genuine. Yes, you, Maya. Your photography has a unique voice. It tells stories that need to be heard, or rather, seen. The gala is a significant event in the local arts community, a chance to connect with other artists, patrons, and enthusiasts. We believe your work would be a powerful and moving centerpiece. Leo, ever the pragmatist, broke the silence. They want your pictures? There was a note of surprised pride in his voice, a stark contrast to the quiet resignation he displayed earlier. Chloe, her small hand still clutching mine, squeezed my fingers. Her eyes were shining with an unadulterated excitement I hadn't seen in a long time. Mom, that's amazing. A warmth began to spread through the chill of the garage, not just physical, but an internal thawing of years of feeling unseen. Vivian's genuine admiration was a balm to the raw wound of Sienna's dismissal. A part of me, the cautious, self-doubting part, still struggled to grasp the reality of her offer. Someone like Vivian Hayes, a woman who exuded such confidence and grace, wanting my art? I don't know what to say, I stammered, feeling a blush creep up my neck. Say yes, Chloe piped up, her enthusiasm infectious. Vivian chuckled softly. Take your time, Maya, but know that the invitation is sincere. We admire your talent, and we believe in your vision. She glanced towards the main house, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. Sometimes the people closest to us are the last to truly see what we have to offer. A bitter truth hung in the air, unspoken but palpable. I looked back at the house, could almost feel the weight of their bewildered gazes through the walls. What must they be thinking? The poor relation, the one relegated to the garage, being offered such an unexpected opportunity by a woman of Vivian Hayes's stature? The irony was almost comical, if it weren't so profoundly validating. Yes, I said, the word feeling surprisingly firm. Yes, Ms. Hayes, I would be honored. Relief and a burgeoning sense of excitement washed over me. Vivian's smile widened and she extended her hand. Wonderful, Maya. I'm so pleased. Her handshake was firm and direct, conveying a sense of genuine respect. As we prepared to leave the garage, gathering our meager belongings, Chloe's half-eaten sweet potatoes, Leo's untouched turkey, the contrast between our humble exit and Vivian's elegant arrival was stark. Through the partially open garage door, I caught a glimpse of Sienna standing in the doorway of the main house, her expression a mixture of confusion and something akin to disbelief. Eleanor stood behind her, her brow furrowed in obvious bewilderment. Blake was nowhere to be seen, probably still dissecting the situation with his invisible Bluetooth companion. Stepping out of the cold garage and into the warm, luxurious interior of Vivian's SUV felt like crossing a threshold into another world. The plush leather seats, the soft lighting, the quiet hum of the engine. It was a universe away from the dusty folding table and paper plates. As we drove away, Vivian turned her attention to me, her interest genuine and focused. She asked about my photography, about the stories I tried to capture through my lens, about my inspirations and my challenges as a single mother trying to pursue her passion. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly seen, not as an obligation or an afterthought, but as an individual with something valuable to offer. The conversation flowed easily, filled with a mutual respect that was a stark contrast to the dismissive interactions I'd just endured. The chill of Thanksgiving Day was finally beginning to thaw. The immediate aftermath of Vivian's arrival was like a sudden burst of sunlight after a long gray winter. Her belief in my work opened doors I hadn't even dared to dream of. She connected me with local galleries, offered resources for better equipment, and, most importantly, provided a platform, the upcoming Community Arts Gala, to showcase my photography. My small apartment, once a space defined by the quiet struggle of making ends meet, began to hum with a new energy. Leo and Chloe, witnessing this unexpected turn of events, seemed to carry themselves with a newfound lightness. Leo, always my quiet observer, started asking thoughtful questions about my process, his initial skepticism replaced by a genuine curiosity. Chloe, her artistic spirit mirroring mine, became my enthusiastic assistant, helping me organize prints and offering her uniquely insightful perspectives on my work. In stark contrast, the silence from Sienna and Eleanor was almost deafening. A few tentative text messages trickled in, vague inquiries about Vivian, thinly veiled attempts to understand what had transpired. I responded politely, but kept my distance, a newfound sense of self-preservation guiding my interactions. The years of seeking their approval had finally given way to a quiet understanding that their inability to see my worth was their limitation, not mine. As the next Thanksgiving approached, the thought of returning to Sienna's opulent but emotionally barren home filled me with a familiar dread. Leo and Chloe, however, had a different idea. "Why don't we have Thanksgiving here this year, Mom?" Chloe suggested one evening, her eyes bright with anticipation. "Just us, and maybe invite some of your friends?" The idea resonated deeply. I thought of Sarah, the kind librarian who always encouraged my photography, and David, the fellow single parent from Leo's school who shared my dry sense of humor. We could create our own tradition, one built on genuine connection and mutual appreciation, not forced obligation and subtle disdain. Our Thanksgiving that year was a far cry from the strained silence of Sienna's garage. My small apartment buzzed with laughter and the aroma of roasting turkey and Chloe's enthusiastically prepared, if slightly lopsided, pumpkin pie. Sarah brought her famous cranberry sauce, and David's dry wit kept us all chuckling. Leo, usually reserved, even shared a surprisingly funny anecdote about a mishap in science class. We ate elbow to elbow on mismatched plates, the warmth of friendship and belonging filling the small space in a way that no amount of gilded decor ever could. Chloe, curled up on the floor with Sarah's daughter Maya, a serendipitous coincidence of names, looked the picture of contentment. That day, surrounded by people who genuinely cherished our company, a profound realization settled within me. This was my true family, the ones who saw me, celebrated my passions, and offered unwavering support, not because of blood, but because of choice. The cold memory of the garage still lingered, a stark reminder of where I had come from, but it no longer held the power to define me. I was building my own table now, and it was surrounded by love and acceptance. The Community Arts Gala was everything Vivian had described and more. Held in a beautifully renovated warehouse downtown, the space buzzed with a vibrant energy, a confluence of artists, patrons, and curious onlookers. My photographs, enlarged and professionally displayed, lined the exposed brick walls, bathed in warm spotlights. Seeing my work presented with such care and respect was a surreal experience, a stark contrast to the dusty cardboard boxes in my apartment. Leo and Chloe, dressed in their best clothes, outfits Vivian had insisted on providing, beamed with pride as they walked alongside me, pointing out their favorite pieces to anyone who would listen. For the first time, they weren't just Maya's kids. They were witnesses to their mother's talent being celebrated. The evening was a whirlwind of introductions, compliments, and a sense of belonging I hadn't felt in years. Vivian, a gracious and unwavering presence, ensured I met key figures in the local art scene, her genuine enthusiasm for my work infectious. People asked about my inspiration, my process, and the stories behind my images. For the first time, I felt truly seen, my voice finding expression through my art. The contrast with the silence from Sienna and Eleanor was even more pronounced during this time. A few more hesitant messages had arrived, tinged with a curiosity that bordered on disbelief. Sienna had even sent a strained congratulatory text after seeing a local news article about the gala, but it felt hollow, devoid of any genuine warmth. I replied with a simple thank you, the need for their validation having finally withered away. The following Thanksgiving, my apartment was once again filled with laughter and the aroma of a home-cooked meal. Our small circle of friends had become our chosen family, a testament to the fact that connection is forged through shared appreciation, not obligation. Leo and Chloe were relaxed and happy, their easy camaraderie with our guests a balm to my soul. There were no paper plates, no cold garages, only warmth, genuine affection, and a profound sense of belonging. A few days after our cozy Thanksgiving, a message popped up on my phone. It was from Eleanor. "Saw your photos online, Maya. They're quite good." It was a small, almost grudging acknowledgement, but it was the first in a long time. I replied with a simple, "Thank you, Mom," a sense of quiet peace settling within me. The need for a grand reconciliation had faded. I had found my own path, my own validation. The Community Arts Gala had been a turning point, opening doors to new opportunities and collaborations. my photography began to gain recognition, leading to exhibitions in local galleries and even a few commissions. Leo, inspired by my journey, had picked up a camera himself, finding his own unique way of seeing the world. Chloe, always my biggest supporter, proudly displayed my work in our apartment, her belief in me unwavering. Years have passed since that cold Thanksgiving in the garage. Sienna and I remain distant, our lives diverging on increasingly separate paths. Eleanor occasionally sends a brief message, a tentative bridge across the chasm, but the dynamic has fundamentally shifted. I no longer seek their approval. My worth is no longer defined by their limited perspective. The garage moment, as Leo once aptly called it, remains a vivid memory, a stark reminder of the pain of exclusion. But it has also become a symbol of unexpected beginnings, a catalyst that propelled me towards a life where my talent is celebrated and my voice is valued. I built my own table, surrounded by those who truly see me, and in doing so, I finally found where I truly belonged. The cold of that Thanksgiving ultimately paved the way for a warmth I had never known before, a warmth that radiated from within and was reflected in the faces of my chosen family.